Welcome to G3, a monthly podcast where we'll talk about gaming and gadgets and introduce special guests from the local gaming community. I'm your host, Brian Crommett. We're coming to you from downtown Fargo, North Dakota. On tap today, on the gaming segment, we'll talk about some of my favorite games and some of the ones I'm looking forward to. On my gadget segment, have you heard about the Amazon Echo? Well, I've got one at home, and I kind of think it's awesome. And my guest today is Kyle Weik of Beach Interactive, a Fargo game developer. I think we've got a pretty cool lineup, so stay tuned. All right, I promised we'd start with a little bit about me, just so you understand that I know a thing or two about gaming. I am the sales and service manager at 702 Communications. I've been at 702 for 15 years, and I got to tell you, most days I love it over there. The industry has changed so much in the past 15 years that it's honestly not even the same gig day to day. And whenever you have an industry that changes that quickly and you've got technology that changes that quickly, so you get to keep playing with it, it keeps you on your toes. What do I do when I take off that sales manager hat? Well, you know, I'm pretty much a normal guy. I'm married and I have a couple teenage boys at home. And when they're not taking up my attention, I'm into music. I actually sing and I play the trumpet. I also like to spend some time reading, cooking, tinkering around the house, and from time to time I've been known to enjoy a top-shelf cocktail. I also find time to game. So let's talk a little bit about my gaming history. I've been a gamer for a long, long time. Before there was Xbox and PlayStation, I was a gamer. Even before there were PCs, there was gaming. My family had a Magnavox Odyssey 2 gaming console. I'm sure most of you haven't even heard of it, so Google it. Do it now. Embrace the roots of your modern consoles. They had a couple games that stand out in my head. I remember Casey's Crazy Chase, which was a Pac-Man knockoff, and The Quest for the Rings. It was supposed to be this sweeping epic, which was never quite as cool as I wanted it to be. From there, it was Nintendo. We moved on to Super Mario and Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy, and all of those games opened up a whole new world. Loved all of them, and honestly, I will still break out Mario 3. I don't know what it is about that game, but I have fond memories of my good friend Kurt and I spending hours playing that game. On the original console, if I remember correctly, there weren't any saves, so you played through or you started over. More than one night, we stayed up all night just trying to get through World 8. After that, did some early PC gaming. There was a great World War I flying game called Wings for the Amiga computer that I spent hours and hours on. Amiga also had this Dungeons & Dragons RPG called Death Knights of Krynn. That felt a little like Final Fantasy and a little like tabletop Dungeons & Dragons. Once the Amiga was gone, I was on to games like Sid Meier's Civilization, StarCraft, Dune 2000, and other strategy games like that. It honestly wasn't until the Nintendo 64 released GoldenEye and Turok Dinosaur Hunter that I really started to migrate away from strategy games and towards shooters. I can't say there's anything that's really memorable in my gaming history then until the Xbox came out. Xbox was a whole new world, and honestly, I know all of you out there have fond memories of Halo. I played some Halo, but the one that really stuck with me was the Rainbow Six franchise. Rainbow Six had some fantastic titles. I don't remember if there were 3 or 4 of them, but the thing that I loved the most was this first-person shooter with all of the weapons you could choose from, all the customizations you could do, and the best part for me was the ability to play co-op terrorist hunt with my friends. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done plenty of versus stuff, and there's totally a place for versus, but I'd rather work with my friends than against them. So I never really got into Call of Duty. And I'm sorry if I've just alienated anybody out there. Rainbow Six. Every game they release, I buy. Also for the Xbox was Star Wars Battlefront. That combined the RPG with first-person shooter, and again, the co-op was fantastic. Co-op versus the computer. I just can't say enough. Any game that gives me a good co-op mode that I can play with friends and against the computer, I'm all over. Also, in that same Star Wars vein, Knights of the Old Republic, I don't know how many of you out there played that, but they just re-released that, I believe, last year or the year before on iOS. Knights of the Old Republic. great game. Would still play it today if they wanted to re-release that on next gen. Once the 360 came out, again, of course, I had to play some Halo. Madden was always a lot of fun. I enjoy playing that with my kids from time to time. And even some Tiger Woods, if you want to slow it down a little bit and have yourself a relaxed game. There's nothing wrong with a little golf. But the real draw on 360 when it first came out, too, was really Rainbow Six Vegas. And Vegas 2 once it came out. My buddies and I have killed a lot of terrorists. Besides Rainbow Six titles, what I'm really into on the 360 is Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead was a great game. Got lots of gameplay out of that. Left 4 Dead 2 was frankly a disappointment. I think I sold it within a couple weeks of buying it. I don't know how they could take something that was so good in Left 4 Dead and turn it into Left 4 Dead 2. BioShock. Love the BioShock franchise. And in that same vein, Borderlands. Once Borderlands came out, I pretty much shelved everything else I had. So I'm still playing Borderlands 2 today. Pre-sequel was okay. Borderlands 2, though, I've got days and days of time logged on that game. So what am I looking forward to? Well, I'm looking forward to Rainbow Six. Of course, they're talking, and it looks like they're going to have a couple new releases this year. Of course, they've been saying that for the last couple of years, so I'm not exactly holding my breath, but I'd really love to see Rainbow Six actually release a couple titles. I've also heard and seen rumors that Star Wars Battlefront is rebooting and launching on the next-gen consoles. And honestly, guys, I confess that I haven't seen that must-play game. So I haven't gone out and popped on a next-gen console yet. But as soon as I see a Rainbow Six title, or as soon as I see that Battlefront reboot launch, I'll be completely out of excuses. So let's talk just a minute about why we decided to launch a gaming podcast. Well, part of it is because Fargo is nurturing a young, vibrant community that works hard and plays hard. We have many facilities to encourage and foster tech startups like the Startup House and Coco Co-working Space, and we host many local meetups with those industry influencers. So why should we talk gaming in Fargo? Well, let's look in the news. In the past 3 months alone, many Fargo game makers made headlines. Wicked Soul Studios had a feature in both WDAY and Fargo Forum about creating a game for the Wii U, headed by a local video game designer. If they are able to get their product released and produced, it will be North Dakota's first commercial product on a console. Raven Rock Digital is working on a custom input system to be used on the Unity platform. They created it to work with their current game project, Infinite Tower. It will be for sale on the Unity Asset Store for anyone to use. DCon, a gaming convention, was held March 20th through 22nd. It included everything from traditional board games to video games. And finally, Beach Interactive teamed up with Close Studios and launched On My Own, a survival adventure game. A preview level is currently available for iOS and Android, and a more extensive early access version is available via Steam. They are also currently developing The Abetter's Letters, a language learning adventure game. We have a founding member of Beach Interactive coming up to discuss his games. So when we saw all that going on, we decided to launch this podcast to give those developers and those of you out there that are getting going another voice. So let's get gaming rolling in Fargo.
Imagine a guy sitting in his darkened room. He's wearing a headset and microphone. His hands work feverishly in the darkness, lit only by the light of his computer screen. It's been hours since he's eaten, days since he's seen the light of day. He is a gamer. He's obsessed, and he requires a connection that is lightning fast and stable enough for him to fend off his attackers. Now, if we can keep this guy happy, think how happy we can make you and your business. 702 is IT. 702com.biz.
All right. For our third segment today, we're introducing our special guest. This is Kyle Weik of Beach Interactive. Kyle, good to see you again. We met just yesterday at Million Cups, actually. Had a nice conversation then. But Kyle, why don't you tell me a little bit about just Beach Interactive? Tell me about that company.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Beach Interactive, we started about 2.5 years ago. It was when I met Sarah English, and she was asked me what I would really like to do. I was recently graduated from MSUM, looking for an internship or just kind of piecing together where I would like to take my design career. She was very just open, asked the blunt question, and I said, well, if I could really do anything, it would be great to kind of do, user experience and user interface for games. I've always been passionate about those.
So what got you into or interested in game development in the first place?
As a kid, I always really enjoyed playing games. But as I got older, I started to really get interested in the development process, looking at what the artists are doing, learning the names in the industry, who was doing who and where did they start, how did they get started. You look back in the 80s and the 90s, there wasn't any degrees to get into games. So where did these guys come from? Some of them were just computer engineers, some of them were fine artists. So I kind of started piecing those together and realizing that, just a simple design degree, from Minnesota, I could probably apply those same processes and, start making games on my own.
Sounds good to me. Makes sense. So you guys have 2 games out right now that you've kind of soft launched, but you're still kind of in development. Do you want to talk a little bit about both of them?
Sure. Well, our first project was the Better's Letters French. That was the one I started working on with Sarah English. She pitched it originally as there's a problem with language learning software. It's really easy for people to quit, and we wondered that if we can make it almost like a role-playing style game where you search around town and talk to people, that might create an incentive for people to want to continue learning, that you have to love the language within the context that you're going to be using it and not just sifting through a book, which traditional methods are still important to learning. So this is definitely supplemental. But,
absolutely, yeah.
So we started developing that game 2 years ago. We did all of the artwork up front because back then, coming out of art school, I didn't know any developers, but over the past 2 years, I've grown to know a lot more. So we actually started the development a year ago through Myriad Mobile and our partnership with Jake Jornstedt over there. And then through that, I actually met one of the developers, Chad Close, who's an Android developer there. Turns out he knew how to develop in Unity.
Sure.
We got invited to Brookings, South Dakota for a kids game camp. And it was a 3-day experience where we quickly made a couple different games. And on the drive back home, he pitched this idea to me of, wouldn't it be cool to make a camping survival style game? And so as soon as we got back,
which got your mind rolling on.
Right. And then so we started working on my own, and we released a small demo of it on Android and iOS in January. And currently we're at 150,000 downloads with that game. So we realized that we needed to capitalize on this interest with the game. We've been working. We had a successful Kickstarter. We launched the Steam version of the game, and now we're building it, and people are giving us feedback. So.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I actually downloaded both of them for iOS last night, and I do have to say the Better's Letters, the artwork is fantastic. I love that, and I think that interface is really cool. And on my own, we were talking about that just a little bit yesterday, where it does have kind of a Minecraft feel, and it has kind of a, it's really unique, and I would love for everybody out there who's listening to this to try both of those. They're both free to download to try. So go out and get them and submit some feedback. I know Kyle and Sarah and the whole team over there would love to hear your feedback on those. So let me ask you, how has the Fargo community impacted the development of your games?
The support, you do something scary like that. You take a part-time job and kind of latch on to the idea that your other part-time job is going to be starting up this game company. Can be a really scary thing. Sometimes it's not the most comfortable thing to be in. So the support that we receive from the community through the entrepreneur community has been great. And now it's just continues to grow. And so now the people that helped me, I want to do my part to help other people that have this interest. So it's kind of passing the torch on and helping out whoever you can.
Awesome. So you talk about passing the torch. What are the future plans for Beach?
Well, we just launched the Better's Letters last week, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. So we're looking to get as many downloads to create a viable market for this game so we can continue to make new episodes of that. We're almost halfway done with On My Own. We're working with a musician to create more original music for it. We're going to work on the next 2 levels. Once it gets finished up, we're going to release it officially on Steam and then release the other content for iOS and Android in the form of small map pack purchases. And then from there, we're just kind of looking to see what else. Probably new languages. So A Better's Letters is in French. We'd love to do a Spanish version using the same mechanics and just continue growing the project from there.
My wife is actually hoping for a family trip to Rome next year, so if you guys want to bump Italian up the line, we'd appreciate that. So last question for you. Do you have any advice for anybody trying to break into the developing industry?
Advice. Okay. Just starting off, putting pen to paper, getting ideas. So I would say it's 2 things. It's doing the work, but also making the connections. Because if I sit at home all day and I just work and do something, it's just going to sit there off to the side and no one's ever going to see it. But then if I just go around and talk to people all day, no work gets done. So it's finding that balance of making connections, but also developing your craft. So develop your craft. Go to things like 1 Million Cups, come to the Game Makers Meetup, show what you have. And not everything needs to be a masterpiece, but just building iterations, starting off with your first game. Hey, what are the strengths of this project? How can I grow from it? Understanding that is vital, and just getting out and doing it.
I think that's great advice. Kyle, thanks you so much for coming in and talking with us today. Kyle Weik from Beach Interactive. And again, the games they've got out are On My Own and A Better's Letters, both available in the Apple Store and Android Store and on Steam.
On My Own is on all three.
On My Own on Steam. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, let's talk gadgets. The gadget I want to talk about today is Amazon's Echo. I don't know if you've heard about this or if you've seen this, but what it is, basically, it's Siri for your home. It's a Bluetooth speaker looking thing. It's about the size of a pop can, maybe a little bit bigger around, probably 2 pop cans stacked on top of each other. And she goes by the name Alexa. And what she can do, well, she can do quite a few cool things, but what we use her for mostly is just convenience things. So if, for instance, you get up in the morning, you go into the kitchen, you start making your coffee, you say, Alexa, what's the weather? And I get a current weather forecast. If I want to hear the extended forecast, I say, Alexa, what's the extended forecast? And I get to hear that. Sit down with my coffee then at the kitchen table and I say, Alexa, what's new? And I get flash news briefings from NPR, BBC, and a number of other sources. I can ask her, she's got access to Wikipedia, so I can ask her, Alexa, Wikipedia Xbox 360. And I can get a Wikipedia readback of Xbox 360 content. But the thing, honestly, that we use the most in my house, like I say, I have a couple teenage sons at home. There's a companion app for your phone. And what you can do when you have your Alexa Echo in the kitchen, anytime somebody eats the last of something, you can say, Alexa, I need cereal. And she'll say, I've put cereal on your shopping list. So when I end up in the store, I just pull out my phone and look at the app, and I can see that I need cereal and likely eggs and milk and bread and everything else that I used to have in the fridge, but don't anymore because I have teenage kids. They just announced, too, something that I've been looking forward to ever since I got Echo a couple months ago, and that is that they now have integration with the Wemo and Philips Hue products. So once you have those in your house, you can have Alexa discover your appliances, and then you can try things like, Alexa, turn on the hallway light. Alexa, turn on the coffee maker. Alexa, turn on the electric blanket. The possibilities there are close to endless. So if you have a couple $100 laying around and you're interested in that smart home, Alexa is a good first start. So Amazon Echo, check it out, Amazon. And there it is, the end of our very first podcast. I want to give a big thank you to Kyle Weik for joining us and to all of you for listening. I hope you look us up again next time when we talk about more games, gadgets, and have another special guest. Also, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of and attends our gaming meetup. That's going to be April 29th at Myriad Mobile at 6 p.m. You can look for more information on that on our Facebook page, and I'm sure that we'll be getting more stuff out on social media as we get a little closer to that date. But remember, April 29th, Myriad Mobile Gaming Meetup. Until then, Fargo, game on.